Hey, what's up guys? Eric here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about Marvel's Secret Invasion. Episode 5 just dropped, but this isn't really a review of Episode 5 or a review of any episode of Secret Invasion at all. It's more of like a thought experiment about the show, because why is no one talking about this? Why is this show just not getting the reception of the other Marvel shows? And what I mean by that is some of them got massive amounts of support. People love them. They talked about them every single week. They theorized between episodes on what was going to happen the episode after that. However, on this show, that's not really happening. We're also not seeing a lot of the haters or the critics out there basically blasting the show. I'm not seeing a lot of that either. It's almost like just no one is talking about Secret Invasion. Is it one of the best, but also one of the most boring of the Marvel TV shows? I mean, on paper, Secret Invasion delivers everything that people had been complaining about. It focuses on classic characters. Nick Fury and Rhodey are basically the main characters of the show. Then we have some great supporting characters like Teos. We have Gaia. We have a really good mystery. The tone is correct. It's consistent throughout the show. They pulled back on the humor, which is something a lot of the critics complain about, is that new Marvel has become too funny. The pacing seems to be really good, although I think the episodes are a bit uneven in runtime, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But overall, I think the show delivers on like this vibe of like phase 1, phase 2 of Marvel. It really does feel like a show out of time. And maybe that's one of the problems. We'll also talk about that in a moment. But overall, I think if you were a critic of quote unquote new Marvel, this is more old school. It really does go back to like the phase 1, phase 2 era of Marvel. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe Marvel thought we're going to give people kind of what they've been asking for, a show that does feel a lot like that nostalgic earlier stuff that we made, but those people have already left, or they've transformed and morphed into some of the fans of the more modern content. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the issue. I want to put it out there that Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury is one of the best characters in the MCU. I think we have all loved this character all the way back to the beginnings of him, like when we first saw him, we first met him. But there was a cool factor to Nick Fury. There was this thing where Nick Fury would just show up and either make us aware of a problem or show up and provide a solution for the problem. And that made him really cool. There was a mystery behind him. We didn't really know a lot about his personal life. We didn't know a lot about his past, his history, what he's doing every moment. That mystery, to me, made him a very cool character. Has this show made Nick Fury uncool? Have we gotten to the point now where we know too much? Look, I love layers to a character, but then some characters, what makes them exciting and interesting is the mystery behind them. It's like a less is more situation. To give an example, when I was growing up, I loved the Snake Eyes character in G.I. Joe because we didn't really know a lot about the character. He was just cool. He was going around, he was fighting, kicking ass. We didn't know his identity. We didn't know a lot about him. He was just a really, really cool character. He was one of my favorites. And then in more modern times, they've sort of tried to make him a layered character with a lot of backstory, a lot of history, which is fine. There's no issue with that. But does that make them less cool of a character? I think in the case of Nick Fury, maybe knowing all of these things about Nick Fury has made him a less interesting character. Another question I kept asking myself is, would this show be better on a binge? Is this week-to-week model not working for every single Marvel show? Are some of them better to watch all in one shot? And for Secret Invasion, again, we're on episode 5. We only have one left. Based on that, I would say yes. I think Secret Invasion would be a better show to watch all in one swoop than it is to watch week to week. We look back at like WandaVision and Loki. There was theory crafting. Fans were talking about who was going to show up, what obscure one-off Marvel character is going to appear in the next episode. And it was fun to wonder if you were going to be right or wrong, even though it could be annoying that people kept saying the same characters over and over and over again. The point is that it kept people talking about it. And so it kept it in pop culture. It kept it in trending. Secret Invasion, there's not enough of that. And I hate to say this, but I think that's a problem. If you're not going to be able to get a show to trend between episodes on a streaming service, unlike network television, that's kind of a death sentence for the show. There needs to be some trendability from week to week. Unfortunately, that's the way you keep people invested in a show, is by doing that. And I think in the terms of Secret Invasion, I think it's going to be better on a binge. I think the show works better as a binge. I think the show could have actually been like a 2.5 hour movie, probably if you trim some of the fat on the show to make it a little bit more concise. Then we have the haters and critics, their contribution to the Marvel shows. Here's the deal. As much as we hate to hear about them, as much as the complaining does get on our nerves, you look at shows like She-Hulk, you look at Miss Marvel, you look at a lot of these properties, they sort of benefited as well from the negative press. She-Hulk specifically, because it kept it being talked about every single week. You know why the critics aren't really complaining about Secret Invasion? Because as I said earlier, the show kind of delivers on all of the complaints. The show isn't committing one of these problems that the haters and the critics have with the Marvel shows. It really is delivering on all of those things. So for them, there's no investment in talking about it because they don't care about it because they're not able to hate on it. So again, this is why trying to cater to people that have that kind of criticism is kind of pointless for Marvel. And hopefully they didn't make the show thinking about that. Hopefully it just was a creative thing for them. And they thought, hey, we're going to take this show that feels like an earlier phase, like Marvel thing, and make it happen. And people are going to love it. I'm hoping they didn't think about the haters and go, we're going to make shows for them, because that would be really dumb. But at the same time, it pulls away from the trendability of the show. And I think that is affecting Secret Invasion. Unfortunately for me, one of my biggest criticisms about the Marvel shows, and actually any of the Disney Plus shows in general, is the uneven run times, where you have like one episode that's 20 minutes and another episode that's an hour. When I sit down to watch a show, I know that I'm not watching the clock, but you can definitely feel the difference between a 20-minute episode and an hour-long episode. So when you're watching it week to week and you're given like a 20-minute episode, that's like watching a review on YouTube. Like it's not a lot. 20 minutes is not a lot for an episode, especially when you're dragging things out and it's a very slow burn to get to the end. Like, I want to see, if you're going to give me this show and you're going to make me sit through like 6 episodes of this mystery, this thriller, this espionage intrigue type situation, then I want the episodes to feel like you're kind of layering it on and giving me a lot of, I don't know, care and concern for it. I think in a lot of ways, like I was watching this week's episode and I noticed like characters jumping from scene to scene. You never know where you are. There's no intertitle to tell you how long it's been or where someone is. They're just kind of moving around. I think we had like one intertitle in the episode that told us where something was this week. Otherwise, people were just moving and shifting and jumping, going from scene to scene. And I think that can work if you're trying to convey that sort of, I don't know, disconnect for the viewer, sort of making things feel disjointed if you're doing it on purpose. But I don't feel like there was any intention behind it. I think that's just the way that the show is edited. And I think that's a problem for me. So if you're going to give us shorter episodes, it feels like the longer the show's being dragged on, but then the episodes are rushing through content. Like it's almost breakneck speed. And I don't know if it's because there was stuff left on the cutting room floor, if they lost money somewhere or what. Something definitely feels off about that. But let's talk about some of the stuff I really do like about the show. I think the show's tone is perfect. I think every single week it nails it. Again, the humor is appropriate. The visuals are great. I think like between the practical and the VFX, which is very sparingly used, I think it works really well on the show. Again, probably one of the best Marvel shows in terms of doing that. So it's really weird to me that people just aren't tuning in and connecting with it. I think the actors are doing a great job. That's another big compliment to the show. I think all of the actors are 100% committed. I think they're doing a really great job of like, you know, this character study on whether or not someone is a Skrull based on how they act and the things they do. I think they could actually play that up even more. I think they could have done even more with that had the episodes been longer episodes every single week instead of like the first 2 being an hour and then all the other ones after that being like 20 to 30 minutes long. I think we could have done with a little bit more of that. That would have been quite interesting because we've skipped over that and we just sort of dive into like this whole, you know, I don't know, sort of generic spy thriller stuff. There's also a question about like, you know, why is Nick Fury being allowed to leave all the time? Why are they not just capturing him? Why has he been killed yet? There's just so many things that sometimes don't make a lot of sense on the show because I think they're just kind of moving through the story in a weird way. And I think that might be off-putting to some people. I'm not totally sure. I just know that in terms of like a show that doesn't seem to be doing well enough for people to be singing its praises every single week, and also a show that's not doing bad enough for the critics and the haters to come at it. It's just one of those shows that sort of falls in the cracks. A lot like Andor for Star Wars. It just kind of falls in the cracks. Now, I was reviewing the show for the first 3 weeks. I took the 4th week off, but the first week I was getting my baseline. It seemed like a lot of people were interested in the show. The viewership numbers were good. I did my live review. A lot of people came in. Second week, looked at my analytics. It fell off between 50 and 55% in viewership on my stream from week 1 to week 2. From week 2 to week 3, we fell off another 80%, which told me that the general interest in the show was just vanishing. It was just going away. And I think people just didn't really, they just weren't interested, I guess, in the show in that way. And it's kind of sad to me because I've quite enjoyed the show, to be honest. I don't know. Again, I've tried to wrap my head around it. I think it's a little bit of all of those things is the problem with the show. I don't think the show is committing any major crimes with the way it's being done. It's doing everything that people have asked for. Maybe this is a case of like, people are asking for something that they don't really want. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the fact that viewers are saying this is what we want. And they don't really want that. I quite enjoy new MCU, and maybe this was just too far of a step back. I don't know. What do you think of Secret Invasion right now? Are you still loving it? Are you hating it? I don't know what kind of engagement we're going to get on this because, again, I don't think the show is sitting well with everybody. And as someone that is enjoying it and typically enjoys Marvel stuff, I think this may have been a misstep in what Marvel perceived the fans wanting versus what they were delivering on. That's not really a problem. I think on binge, it's going to be just fine. But week to week, I think that's an issue. We'll have to see how it wraps up. We'll revisit it then. Anyway, thanks, guys. Talk to you later.